Alright guys, hello to you all, welcome to this Halloween special on Dasker Discusses. Oh boy, I've been waiting for this all week. Here we are guys, we are here in the top 25. I've gone through, well, this is my top 66 movies actually, but we are up to the top 25. So, let me just share all this. Hang on. One sec. We'll be going through the top 25 horror films of all time picked by me, obviously. So yeah. Let's go guys. How are we going to do this? Well, firstly, remove these. And two, let's just have a recap as to what from 66 to 25. So let's have a brief look, shall we? Okay, we had Poltergeist 2, number 66. Ooh, scary. Then we had Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Then we had The Sixth Sense. 63, Friday the 13th. The Descent. Get Out. Carrie, 1976 version. The Fly, number 59. Don't Breathe. An American Werewolf in London. Misery, 56, Rob Zombie's Halloween, Open Water, Hellraiser, Orphan, Arachnophobia, 51, 50, Dream Warriors, great movie, Hostel, meh, The Babadook, Bram Stoker's Dracula, a few people were telling me, oh, how did that make it in there? It does. Creep, great movie, 46 on Netflix, The Exorcist 3, very underrated, Dawn of the Dead, good zombie movie, Halloween, the 2018 one, Fear Street Trilogy, yep, I put it in there. Child's Play, gotta love Chucky. The Cell, Scream at 39, Martyrs at 38, Saw, Event Horizon, great movie. The Witch, another great movie. Evil Dead, the remake, 34. Silence of the Lambs, 7, going through those psychological thrillers. The Wicker Man, Jacob's Ladder at 30. It at 29. Ju-on, which is The Grudge, the Japanese one, at 28. The Strangers at 27. And let me just double check if anyone's asking any questions. And yeah, 26 we had The House That Jack Built, disturbing film. Now for the top 25. Here we go, people. Explosion. Scary sounds. Here we go. Top 25. Well, yeah, I'll put this one in, sorry. 25 to 1. Here we go. At 25, we have number 25, Ringu. The original Ring, the Japanese version, not the American remake. The first time I saw this, I remember I was probably back at uni, and there is something very haunting and very scary about this. Now, the American one, I get it, it is creepy as well, but I just think, spoilers, the last scene in this, when, the whatever happens out of the TV, blah, 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 2010 Grand Final, my number one scariest show. Yeah, mine is the 2018 one, mate. The 2018 Grand Final, last 2 minutes is the scariest thing I've ever seen. So, The Ring. Just the way it ends is a lot better and more superior than the US version. It is, compared to cinematography-wise, probably isn't as good as the American one, but creep factor, scare factor, definitely this 25 for me, 100%. Deserves to be in there. 24. Oh boy, here we go. I love Ridley Scott and I grew up watching the Alien series. Alien is kind of like a slasher film in space. The alien itself, you don't see it that much, but this is a brilliant film with so many good examples of like cinematography, the soundtrack. Just reading through these. It is something that needs to be seen at least once, guys, because it's, alright, made in 1978. It is scary. The video game Alien Isolation was actually pretty awesome as well. I love playing it. Alien is a quintessential sci-fi horror, and without it, there'd be, I mean, all the imitators that came from this and all the video games and everything, pop culture, this deserves to probably be in the top 15, but it's not. It's 24. It is, you watch it in a dark room on a cold night, and cold, windy, rainy night. It is quite scary, and look, a lot of people like Aliens better. It's very difficult to choose. Depends what you like. If you like more slow burn horror, then this is your type of movie, whereas you want action, and Aliens is more your type of movie. But I still think that Alien deserves a spot in the top 25. Oh, here we go. 23. No, 22, sorry. Did I miss one? Who knows? I think I did. Lol. Okay, so at 22 we had Clown, which again made by Eli Roth. Now, not really that popular, this film, but there is something about this that is quite scary, I must say. One sec, I'm just replying to this. One sec. Okay. Okay, so Clown, about a guy who finds an old discarded clown suit, puts it on, and it is quite scary. Hang on one sec. Okay. He puts on the clown suit and then slowly starts to become possessed by this clown. Now, this is really gruesome. It is quite violent. But I'll tell you what, it is underrated, right? And if you want pure horror, and I'm talking like, to see the guy that acts like this, the main actor, the protagonist who turns into the antagonist, there are some real disturbing scenes in this and some like brutal kills. If you can imagine like Halloween, Friday the 13th, kind of where it's a real person, like a real man. It's kind of like a lot different to them, but it's definitely got this thing. It's got that guy, what's his name? Oh, the guy from Armageddon and the guy from Minority Report, Peter Stormare, is in it as well. So it's worth a look, but it is quite violent. At 21, we have Suspiria, made by one of my favorite directors, Dario Argento. Now look, how we put this, made in the 78, 77. This film, I mean, look, it's not so much, you don't really see, it's just about a girl who goes to a ballet school in Italy. This is one of the Giallo films, as they're known as, and I'm a big fan of Dario Argento. Deep Red, Tenebrae, Phenomena, yeah. If you haven't seen Suspiria, look, if you think, oh yeah, I'll check this out, they made a remake of it as well, which was pretty good. But I just think the original, the use of color, the soundtrack is amazing, the cinematography. This is like if you want to get into like, analyzing films, or you want to like, update or kind of like expand your knowledge on horror, then Dario Argento's films are way up there, but they are brutally violent. There is some really graphic scenes in this, but the cinematography, the use of lighting, and the sound is just one of the best. And Suspiria is something that you can chuck on and you can be like, you see something new every time you see it. So I didn't get upset, but I just think when they did the remake and you get people saying, oh yeah, I'll go watch that movie, and like, did you know it was a remake of an original? People got no idea. So yeah, that's the 21 for me. So let's go to 20. Oh, here we go. We've got Jaws. Oh boy, I love this movie. This is in probably my top 10 films of all time. Great drama film, great horror. It is scary, I think. Watch it in the summer and then try to go for a swim. says maybe too intense for younger children. Yeah, it is intense. I reckon you break this up into two separate films. There's the first half where you're on land and Chief Brody's trying to work out how these people getting killed by this shark, etc. And then the second half where you're on the boat with Quint and Hooper. I can quote this movie. I can quote just about every line. It's the story that goes behind this, how it was made. You don't see the shark as much. This is 100%. You need to watch this if you're into your films and you haven't seen Jaws. Not because it's horror, but just as a filmmaking masterpiece, the first blockbuster that ever came out back in the 70s. They don't make them like they used to. And Jaws, you can watch it now, and alright, the costume's a bit dated, some of the dialogue, whatever, but seriously, this is just up there. It's up there with like The Godfathers and other classics. I'm not going to mention them because I might be mentioning them later, who knows. Okay, so here we go for number 19. Alright, we're going to get a bit of controversy here. People won't agree, but the Blair Witch Project. This is a great case study that I give to my senior year levels about viral marketing, or like marketing and how the internet was used to market this film. I went and watched this with a whole bunch of friends back in 1999, and a lot of them didn't like it. I thought it was great. Yes, it can be a bit disorientating, but I just think, look, the premise, the advertising, it hit the right spots at the right time in history. Internet was just getting started up, and there was that website, BlairWitch.com, with all the fake newscasts. We all thought, people, the way they went about this, thinking that it was real, that is what made this film scary, because we know it was fake, but did we know it was fake? The way they went about it? It was revolutionary despite its criticism. Yes, and that's what I thought, Demetrios, is when I saw it with a whole bunch of friends, was that we walked out of Burke Street, Greater Union, and they were like, that was the biggest bunch of garbage I've ever seen. And I'm like, that was actually pretty good. It was something different. And a lot of comments I had from a mate was like, you didn't even see anything. It was stupid. I'm like, maybe that was good in a way that we didn't see the witch. And that, I go camping. It felt like it was for real. The acting is good. There's a lot of swearing in it, I just realized. But big deal. If you tried to show this to a 15, 16-year-old now, they'd probably be like, meh, whatever, this is boring, this is crap, why don't they just do this, why don't they just do that? At the time, it was different, right? So this is a film for its time, for that whole internet kind of craze, the way it was marketed. Blair Witch deserves to be in the top 20. 18. Oh boy, here we go. Oh boy, look, the less said, the better, but this was banned in Australia for many, many years. I tried to stay away in this top 66 from putting in the more extreme horror films, but this is not banned anymore. But Cannibal Holocaust, well, we're talking about Blair Witch Project. I was just going to say that wasn't the first found footage film. This gave birth to that genre, and it is brutally intense. The plot is about a guy that goes into the Amazon jungle trying to find these documentary makers that went missing, and then they find their footage and they watch it, and well, they get eaten by cannibals in these cannibal tribe. The problem with this film, sounds like Leo's saying that. I won't say who it was, but it was a few. Initials GK, CV, yeah, more GK. I remember saying that the Blair Witch Project was total rubbish. It could have been CV, yeah, I don't know, Leo, yeah. So, Cannibal Holocaust, the problem with this film is that I don't recommend it these days to anyone. It is a scary film, but it does have actual animal cruelty in it, which, wouldn't go down well today, so stay away from that. There are some really graphic scenes of animal cruelty, but yeah, in terms of horror, it's up there. Moving on. 17. Well, we're getting into the darker kind of films here, guys. Top 25. What do you expect? But Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Now, you may see that guy there and think, hey, who's that? Well, that's actually Michael Rooker, the guy that plays in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's very young. He plays a serial killer, which is based on Henry Lee Lucas from the 70s and 80s. I'm pretty sure he was a serial killer. Now, they don't actually know if what he did was real or true, but it's loosely based on his life. This is a real visceral, intense film. There is no happy ending. And just like the tagline says there, he's not Freddy, he's not Jason, he's real. Yeah, there are some really, really intense scenes in this where I think the cut version was available in Australia for a while, and I think even now the uncut version, I don't even know if it's available, but yeah, great acting, great performance by Michael Rooker here, really, really great film and performance by him. The guy that plays next to him as his mate, Otis, is I think Tom Towles, and then Tracy Arnold's in as well, so yeah, it is low budget, it feels like it feels like you're following around a serial killer. Yeah, disturbing to say the least. 16. Oh, okay. Now we're getting into our possession type of films where, well, we had like serial killers, we've had like, you know, found footage. The first possession film I've got on here, I'm pretty sure, is The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Laura Linney, Tom Wilkinson, and the sister from Dexter is in it, who plays a really good role. I haven't watched this for a long time, but again, seeing this at the cinema was vital. It is up there in terms of possession films. It is really, really scary, especially the exorcism parts, just about basically based on a true story of a girl who was possessed and then actually passes away, and the priests go to court. So the film is based around the court case, so it's kind of like half the film is the court case, and then the other half is like what happened during this exorcism. I wouldn't be watching this late at night by yourself in your house. This is actually really, really creepy. But then again, the top 25, that's what you're going to expect. But seriously, if you don't like possession films, stay away from this. But I think it's a great film. But yeah, look, with all the court stuff, I guess you probably could, it wouldn't be too bad. But yeah, anyway. Alright, moving on to number 15. Paranormal Activity 1 to 3. Now, you may think, oh, Dasker, you're cheating. You can't put Paranormal Activity 1 to 3. That's cheating. Well, I can and I will, because I think these three were actually very well made. They made a lot of money. Blair Witch Project and all them, yes, they were big too, but this whole concept of like, the budget was like something ridiculous, like what, $18,000 or something? Especially the first one camera, one bedroom, and that house that they used. These were genuinely, you can get, you know, goosebumps happening. Some people may think they're not scary, but I dare to just watch Paranormal Activity, go straight to bed, and then see what happens. Just see how you feel about that. 2 was really good sequel, and 3, back in the 80s, I thought was very good. I didn't even bother, I mean, I think I watched 4 and the rest, but I just gave up. But these 3, if you're into that whole surveillance type horror, this is it. And I think they did a really good job, and it made so many more imitators after this. So 14. Okay, Midsummer. I reckon this should have been higher in the list, but it took me a while to go through this list properly. Midsummer, directed by one of my favourite directors at the moment, Ari Aster, who also made Hereditary. How do you put this? 2.5 hours of like a girl and her boyfriend and a couple of friends go to, what is it, like Sweden, Norway? I'm pretty sure it's Sweden, to like a kind of like a village per se, and they start living and they're trying to, like, you know, write their thesis about this village, and slowly, this is a real slow burn film. I would even call this like the Shining of our, what's a big call? The Shining of our generation. I don't know about that, but look, don't watch this if you don't like slow burn films. I'm talking like extremely slow. We've got character building, and then things happen that are quite shocking, and then it all builds up to an almighty ending. Some very interesting scenes, but also I love Ari Aster, his cinematography, the soundtrack, the fact that this whole film is done in the daylight, a horror film. This is really something good by A24 Studios. I really like what they do, and it's my type of horror film, right? Where it's just psychologically messes with you, and Midsummer is up there at number 14. Very good film, but not for everyone. Okay, well, Stephen King was definitely going to appear again. We had Misery and we had something else, can't remember. But number 12, Pet Sematary. This movie, now I saw when I was a kid. Now, not like small, but read the book as well. The book is really scary. The film, I'm not even going to bother with a remake. This one, although the acting is pretty cheesy, the soundtrack is awesome, the Ramones, but there is some really good imagery in this. There is some very sad parts in this, and the whole themes of life, death, and family. It is quite intense. I don't know if I could even watch this now these days, because just some of the themes are just very dark, and then the whole last act is just pure horror. So yeah, it's about a family that move into a new town, and they live next to a road where a lot of animals have been killed by trucks. But then, the guy's cat dies, and the neighbor says, why don't we bury the cat in the pet cemetery and see what happens? And the cat comes back to life, but it's not the same. And as the tagline says, sometimes dead is better. And who's the, what's his name that's in it? What's his name? The guy from The Munsters. He's the neighbor, Judd. Anyway, moving on. 11. Oh boy, here we go. How long have we been going for, people? 21 minutes. Number 11, Poltergeist. I love this movie. Written by Steven Spielberg, directed by Tobe Hooper, but produced by Steven Spielberg. Now, there's debate as to who was the main director here, but Tobe Hooper's credited as the director. Spielberg was making E.T. at the same time as this, so he was keeping an eye on this while he was making E.T., and you can definitely tell. And many other reviewers have said it, and I'll say who. You got like the Angry Video, Cinemassacre. I love those guys. I love James Rolfe. I reckon these exist in the same universe, Poltergeist and E.T. It's like they're happening in the same suburb. It's about a girl and her family, and a lot of stuff's happening around the house, and then she gets pretty much taken into the other side, and she can only communicate through the TV. They call these, scientists, psychics, and they try and bring her out. This is genuinely a scary film, I think. I mean, it does turn a bit crazy near the end of the film, but it's got that Spielberg feel about it. I still have issues watching the part with the clown, not when it comes alive, but just seeing that clown. I can think about it now. The soundtrack, Robbie is in bed, he sees the clown. I still get scared. Yeah, and if you told me, hey, sleep in your bedroom with this clown in the room for $1 million, I wouldn't be sleeping at all. I'd just be staring at the thing. I can't even think about that clown. I hate it. But great soundtrack by Terry Goldsmith as well. I just realized that there's a different version of the main theme with lyrics. It's called Bless His House. Very creepy. But Poltergeist is something that I grew up watching. I know it sounds disturbing, but it was different, guys. The 80s and the 90s. But you can see how this influenced a whole bunch of horror films and even TV shows like Stranger Things. Come on. Poltergeist should have been in the top 10, but it's not. And now for our top 10. Here we go. First bomb I'm going to drop for top 10 is The Conjuring. Wow, what can you say about The Conjuring? It is a very intense horror film. There are some real big jump scares, but of course you're going to get that when you've got director of Saw and Insidious, James Wan, directed by James Wan. Sorry guys, I'm just going to sneeze. Hay fever. As I was saying, James Wan directed it, and what can I say about it? Well, a lot of jump scares, yes, but again, that whole possession scene near the end of the film is really intense and scary. This is something that you could chuck on with friends if they look, anything in this top 10 you could we'll talk about it, but something like, oh, Halloween, what do we watch? If you want to go to that extra level of scaring people, The Conjuring is up there, but not too graphic in terms of violence or disturbing scenes where you're not going to sleep for a week. But The Conjuring is scary, so that's why it's in the top 10. And yeah, let's go to number 9, shall we? Oh, here we go. Number 9. Well, you'd be surprised, and we've got an Aussie film in here, Wolf Creek. Yep, how can you be found when no one knows you're missing? Well, anyone that's driven out to the outback in Australia, which I've done many, many times, out there, it's beautiful, right? You go camping under the stars, everything's out there. It's you and nature. However, when you're on your campsite, and it's happened to me once with family, and then a random car just rocks up, and I remember this, like it happened. These guys were like, oh, we're kind of lost, where do we go? And they looked a bit shady, right? So it was a really kind of scary moment for me, but they left us alone. It wasn't no big deal. Nothing happened. But Wolf Creek is just these tourists, they get stuck out there and their car breaks down, and then good old Mick Taylor comes to help them out. Now, this is based around the backpacker murders, Ivan Milat and a few others as well, but it is a really intense horror film. It is quite violent, disturbing. It is not something that I would recommend, like, guys, let's watch a horror movie. Not for the squeamish, I mean, but for an Aussie film, it is fantastic. The second one was a bit, whatever. But the TV show was not bad too, but you can't go past this original Wolf Creek. I saw it at the movies, and I'm glad that an Aussie film made it in the top 10. Mick Taylor is a great antagonist, and this is where that sense of realism hits. There's no ghosts and all that. It's just a complete psychopath hunting you down out in the outback. Number 9, Wolf Creek. Oh, come on. Is this that low? That high? Wow. Okay, number 8, Halloween by John Carpenter. I'm talking about the original 1978 one. Guys, you can have all the remakes you want. You can reboot whatever you want. You can make Halloween ends and kills and blah blah blah. But the original 1978 Halloween is a cinematic masterpiece. Why? You may watch it now and think, this is not that scary. Well, it is, right? But also the fact that the cinematography behind it, the editing, the music, the acting by Jamie Lee Curtis as well. Some of her friends are a bit cheesy, yeah, but this was the one that started it all in terms of the slasher films. You had Friday the 13th after that. You had Freddy Krueger. You had Texas Chainsaw was before this, so that wasn't really slasher though. But yeah, gotta watch it. Seriously, like the original Halloween is up there. That opening shot, the point of view shot of like. This basically, you see the birth of Michael Myers and the 100 video movies and sequels that came out. Look, I just saw Halloween Kills, and I'll probably do a review on that another day. But for now, Halloween 1978 has got a soft spot for me because I think as probably 15, 16-year-old watching it, I'm like, this is actually scary. And it's also, a bit cheesy in some parts, but the way it's filmed and the way the amount of effort that goes into the shots and the subtle slow takes and the not so fast editing, that's what makes this film that good, right? So Halloween number 8. Now I remembered what happened. Let me go back. Number 23 was meant to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but we'll go back to that. Number 7, The Evil Dead. I love this movie. The original one is fantastic. The remake was good, but I do love this. Directed by Sam Raimi. 1980, I'm pretty sure. It is quite visceral, intense, really over the top with its violence. Like, I'm talking like blood and guts everywhere. But there are some real key scenes, especially in the first half of the film, that are genuinely scary. And we've got a whole bunch of friends in a cabin. They read the Book of the Dead, and then they unleash a whole bunch of like demons. And come on, The Evil Dead. It is like iconic. It is iconic. And if you haven't seen it and you call yourself a horror fan, then Are you a horror fan, guys? Come on. But it's not for everyone. This original one is not for everyone, and the remake is definitely not for everyone because of its extreme violence, but this one is really intense in terms of its violent content, but there are some really good, like, we're talking about low budget filmmaking here, and Sam Raimi did an excellent job doing that for back then, for the shoestring budget. And let's not forget Bruce Campbell playing Ash. And then you've got the countless sequels and TV shows. Evil Dead. Can't go wrong. Come on. Alright, number 6. Sinister, from the producer of Paranormal Activity and Insidious. Now, this was rated the number 1 scariest film of all time because of heart rate, beats per minute. And I understand that. I did watch this recently, maybe about a few months ago, and yes, heart rate was going up high. It's about a true crime author that moves into a house with his family, and that house that he happens to move into is where a whole family got murdered. Or, like, yeah, I won't spoil it, but Ethan Hawke is in it, and can't remember who else, but he finds these old 8mm tapes and puts them in and starts in the attic and realizes that this is footage of the family that used to live there, but it's footage of their murders, and it is really intense. In terms of like the scariest film of all time, I don't put it up there, but it is in, the top 10. There is a lot of jump scares, and I think that's why people get scared from this, because there is just way too many jump scares. So you want to watch it with friends, go ahead, but there's just especially one jump scare where the first time I watched it, I actually jumped out of my seat. It was that bad. But it is genuinely creepy, apart from some of the cliche horror tropes that you get in this kind of era of 2005 to 2015, that 10-year bracket of like, yeah, you'll know what I mean when you see it. It's just a cliche thing of someone searching the internet, finding information, and then you talk to someone and there's just so much exposition about telling the audience what's going on. We can work it out. You don't need to get the guy looking on the internet telling us what this demon is, and then another guy that he talks to telling us the same thing. So things like that annoying me. But yeah. Anyway, top 5 people. Here we go. We've been going for 32 minutes. Wow. Let's go. Top 5. Oh, come on. As if I was going to put one of my favorite directors' films in it. Stanley Kubrick, The Shining. I went and watched this at the Astor. It's a theatre in Melbourne, because they were playing it, and seeing this on the big screen was fantastic. I used to teach this back in the day, a long time ago. Cinematography, soundtrack, acting by Jack Nicholson, even Shelley Duvall, the stories behind the making of this, especially that scene, the baseball bat scene. The book is fantastic. I know the movie, Kubrick didn't really go too much by Stephen King's book, but if you have genuinely watched this and you thought it was garbage or you didn't find it scary, that's fair enough. Whatever. I think this genuinely has some good scary parts in it. I think the soundtrack makes this even more the more frightening, but the fact that I just love the look of this film, the hotel, the party when he goes and he's transported back into the 20s or the 30s, whenever it is, and the fact that slowly this whole hotel is starting to consume Jack. You've got his son Danny who sees the twins. This iconic imagery in this, and if you're telling me that The Shining doesn't deserve to be in the top 5 as a horror film, then look, I want to hear your ones. I want to hear your ones, guys. Please let me know. But it is a masterpiece of filmmaking by Stanley Kubrick. Now, a lot of people probably don't like it, but I'm not here to debate that. I've done a whole analysis on The Shining in another video. You can watch that. It deserves to be in the top 5. It is an iconic piece of cinema that will always be remembered, and some great performances. Shelley Duvall went through hell in this, and you may think she's really overacting, but watch the making of it and then you'll see. Alright guys, so yeah, number 5, The Shining. Number 4. I didn't think, doing this list, I was looking through it and, I'm like, what am I going to put? Well, we have another James Wan film called Insidious. Now, they've made many sequels, but I can say this. Insidious is scary. Now, I think it's to the point where if you have a Halloween night with friends and everyone's sitting around, if everyone's taking it seriously and you're watching a movie, meaning that like you have a Halloween party or have friends over and you got popcorn and snacks around, different story. Watch something like Scream where, you can just watch it, have a laugh. But if you want to genuinely scare people, then anything in this top 5, maybe The Shining, maybe won't scare. It's a slow burn, right? But these top 5, I think, are the ones that will literally put people into an uneasy kind of way. Not because of the violence, but just because they are actually scary. Insidious is about, you think it's about a haunted house, but no, it's about a haunted child. But he's not possessed. He's actually like in this coma state. We've got Rose Byrne in it. We've got the other guy, I can't remember his name. Directed by James Wan. There are some real serious, scary parts in this. The first half of the film, you can really cut the tension with a knife. However, it does fall down a bit in the last act of the film where it gets a bit too CG for my liking, but it deserves to be in the top 5 horror films of all time because you know why? It is scary. Tiptoe through the window. This and Conjuring are up there, but Insidious deserves to be there. I haven't seen this for a while, but it is scary. And the fact that in order to get his son back, it's kind of got this poltergeist feel to it. He has to get hypnotized and go into the other, what's it called? It's kind of like it got this Stranger Things vibe to it, but before Stranger Things. So, yeah, there is some genuinely scary parts in this. Number 3. Well, we're getting to territory where it's like my favorite films of all time, my top 25, and number 3 is A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, I'm sorry guys, but like, I know it's going to sound disturbing that I saw this when I was very young. I don't remember, so don't worry, but back in the 80s it was a different time, right? This came out in 1984. I can't remember how old I was when I saw it, but I was definitely under 10 years old, and probably not good. I don't remember much, but I do remember watching it again when I was probably 12, 13, and it was from the video shop, the uncut version, and it did scare me. It's still scary to this day. It is Wes Craven at his best. Freddy Krueger, the birth of Freddy Krueger. This is not just another slasher film. This is something different. I know that the last act of the film kind of loses it a bit with like what's actually happening, what's reality, etc. But Johnny Depp's first role, iconic Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund playing Freddy Krueger, iconic soundtrack, iconic cinematography. This is not just your run-of-the-mill slasher film. This is 80s horror at its best, right? It beats Friday the 13th. It beats all the rubbish Halloween sequels. Doesn't beat Halloween, but it is iconic, okay? Now, there's something on Netflix you can watch called The Movies That Made Us, and they've done an episode on this. It was good, but Freddy Krueger, it was a phenomenon back in the 80s and the 90s as well. The sequels were okay. This was good. Part 2 was good. 3 was amazing. The rest, up and down really. But New Nightmare was good. That was in the top 66. But yeah, number 3, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. I've got this poster, the original poster. I am a huge Freddy Krueger fan. There is something about this film that is just so many iconic scenes in it that scream the 80s, right? And some of the most brutal kills you'll see as well. I mean, Wes Craven borrowing things from like Psycho, having the protagonist, I'm not going to spoil it, but come on guys. I mean, you can't go wrong with this. So, Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 at number 3. Okay, here we go people. Wow. The top 2. Before I get to my number 2, alright, we'll do it, come on. Number 2. Now, whoever's watching, if it's a friend of mine watching, I don't know exactly, but I had friends that watch Hereditary, right? This came out, 2017 or 16, directed by Ari Aster, the guy that made Midsummer, produced by A24 Film Studios. Toni Collette, Rose Byrne, Gabrielle Byrne, I can't remember his name, and then you've got that girl there who plays Charlie. The less I say about this, the better, but Hereditary is not for everyone. It is a very slow burn. This is not something that you put on with a whole bunch of friends who are going to be on their phones the whole time, not paying attention. You have to pay attention in this film. It is an extremely slow burn. The acting is phenomenal. Toni Collette should have... Here we go. I knew it. Demetrios Materos facepalm. If you just give me a chance to explain Demetrios, the cinematography in this, the use of miniatures, the way they use the miniatures to tell the story, because you've got Toni Collette, her character, she's like an artist. The way they tell the story, the way they use mise en scène. Now that's what I teach in film. It's like what's actually in the frame, right? So at any given point in a movie, you look at what's in the frame, right? It could be just two people talking, but we're talking about like when someone's sitting on a bed and then there's the background, or like you go past a pole or something and I don't want to spoil anything, but what's in the background? What's the director showing you, and can you actually pick up on it? This film is filled with that stuff. Not only does it have a good story, and the first act is like, what the hell just happened kind of moment, which I'm not going to get into. It has a great soundtrack. The camera work is great. The plot and the acting by all of them is amazing, especially Toni Collette. This whole grief that happens is about her, at the start of the film, her mother's passed away and she goes to the funeral. There are some genuinely scary parts in it. Now, people face palming, I get it. It's my opinion. But if you look at any top 10 or top 20 horror films out there, you will see this in there. Why? Because it is scary. Especially the last act of this film, where the slow burn of this film, really, it pays off. Okay? Now, I want to know what other people's definition of scary is. This is up there. Now, you may have noticed that I've got a lot of slow burn films in my top 66 or in my top 10. That's who I am, guys. I love that whole style of filmmaking. But I do like, Evil Dead and Freddy Krueger and all that. But when I saw this at the movies by myself, I came home, I genuinely had to turn lights on to walk around the house. And I haven't had that kind of feeling for a long time. And Cinemassacre, James Rolfe, who's got 1 million subscribers, more, he's actually rated this as well. Now, I'm not saying, because of him you rated it. No, I actually love this film, and it is something that reminds me of Stanley Kubrick with The Shining. And Ari Aster, fantastic director. I hope he keeps doing horror, because this is definitely up there. So, there's that. Number 2, Hereditary. But like I said, if you're watching with a whole bunch of friends and it's like a popcorn movie night, don't put it on, because if people don't concentrate, you literally won't get anything out of it. You have to be invested in this like you would be if you watch something like Tenet. Anyway, before I get to my number 1, we've been talking for a long time, but before I get to my number 1, my number 23, which I forgot to put in, was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So if you noticed, 22, 24, I forgot 23. 23 was meant to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And, well, what can you say about that? Wasn't so much a slasher film, but it opened the door for a lot of horror. And Leatherface, that whole film, I'm not even going to discuss it. You guys just read the synopsis and you'll know. Then we're going to talk about number 1. But before we talk about number 1, some honorable mentions. Can I think of any? You know what? I should have written them down, but nah. I think I've got maybe The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock, Shocker, Wes Craven is another one. Scream, no, not that. Alright, let's go to number 1, guys. I think you know what it is. It is the, well known as the scariest film of all time, The Exorcist. Now, wowee. I do have a copy of this poster, an original poster, and what can you say about it? I need to do a whole video about this film. It's on Netflix right now, but it is not the director's cut, which is a real shame, because the director's cut, or the version you've never seen, is actually a really good version, apart from a few... How do you explain this film? Well, look, I've read the book too, William Peter Blatty, and just about basically a girl who gets possessed by a demon, right? But it's so much more than that. The opening of the film that starts in Iraq, and the call to prayer that's used, and you're in Iraq, it is iconic imagery, iconic use of sound, iconic in every way. Starting off a film like that, I remember seeing this. Dimmy, yeah. Now this is going to sound really disturbing out there, guys, and you're going to think, what? Are you serious? Yes. This was in the 90s. I was in grade 6, and there was a sleepover party. You know, you do that, you know, when you're a kid. I was probably 12 years old, and it's for a birthday, and my friend, he had a couple of horror films. I think it was like Puppet Master, Pet Sematary, usual stuff. And then he pulled out this, and I knew, like, because my parents never let me watch this when I was a kid, obviously, that I shouldn't be watching it. And I do remember vividly watching this that night at some friend's house with a whole bunch of kids, and we laughed, you know, the first 45 minutes of the film. This is not scary, blah, blah, blah. And then, well, I think I still remember to this moment seeing Linda Blair bouncing up and down on the bed, and then her eyes roll back, and there's the white eyes, and then that voice comes out. And this is before her face gets all messed up. But seriously, people, you know, a lot of people would probably watch this now, this generation, and think, oh, it's cheesy, it's whatever, it's not scary. Well, I just think this film really holds up because of its themes about faith, about family, about innocence. There are some really, really disturbing scenes in this, and you can just look back at the history of when this came out, the phenomenon that it was, and how people reacted, people fainting and all that. Yeah, I get that. People were probably more religious back then. It was about religion as well, so it was banned in a lot of countries. Now it's on Netflix. Now you could watch it and think, meh, what's the big deal? But look, even now, some of the scenes in it are just visceral and in your face, and like, did I just actually see that? I don't recommend this to anyone who is easily scared, or who doesn't like horror films, who will be affected, meaning like where you watch something and you keep thinking about it, because this took me a long time to get over it. Not because of like the possession scenes in it, like the last 25 minutes. That's actually not the scary part of this film. The scary part of this film is the other stuff. The subliminal imagery, like, you know, Father Karras having a dream, and then just a flash of like a face, and you're like, what is that? And I remember being with friends when I was probably 15, 16 when we borrowed it, and I watched it with friends who are on this chat now. No, they're not, but you know who you are. And they're like, oh, this is not scary at all, this is not scary. But then you're watching it during the day, maybe it's not as scary, but then to this day they still talk about how scary this is. I've got friends that still won't watch this. The subliminal imagery is one. Two, it's the fact that this poor girl, she starts changing. The mum doesn't know. The mum's a famous actress. Ellen Burstyn plays a great role in this. Jason Miller is Father Karras. So we've got two kind of plots happening. You've got a desecration in the church. It's based in Georgetown, Washington. You've got Jason Miller as Father Karras. You've got a Cobb, who's trying to find out what happened here. You've got a murder, or not a murder. You've got a death that happens in this kind of vicinity of this house. You've got Linda Blair as Reagan, who's a young 12-year-old innocent girl who starts changing and things start going wrong. Not going to get into it, but I just think this deserves number one. The fact that, is it because, you know, I grew up watching it and all that kind of stuff? I think, no. I think the book is really frightening, but it's iconic, and I know they're going to remake it. I know they did the TV show and whatever, they're going to remake it. But you know what? You can bring back Ellen Burstyn, sorry. You can bring her back for the remakes, reboots that they paid $400 million for. They're not going to get close. This was, for its time, it's just an iconic film. It's up there with The Godfather, The Exorcist, Shawshank Redemption. You want to put it up there. Iconic films, like ones that defined a genre. This is defined not only horror, supernatural, psychological. The Godfather with its mafia drama. Shawshank with its like great kind of message by the end of it. Pulp Fiction for, you know, Tarantino with what he did. I like Reservoir Dogs better, but this is up there, guys. This is not a slasher film. This is a very slow burn film as well. You may think, you know, the puke and the head going around is like cheesy, but yeah, I don't recommend this to, again, for a Halloween night. We're going to sit there and everyone's having popcorn. You got friends over. This is not that type of film. This is the type of film where you want to get scared. Yeah, go ahead, but be warned. But also remember that it was made in 1973, so I am not going to recommend this to, like, I mean, unless you're a big horror fan and you haven't seen it, different story, but read the synopsis, see what you think. But you want a popcorn type of horror film where you can just sit around with friends and have a laugh, watch the new Halloween remake, watch Insidious maybe, watch the old Halloween, I don't know, but yeah, like, this is not, I just think that the young people of today probably wouldn't appreciate it, but the cinematography behind it, the acting, the story behind it, the iconic, everything about this film is just iconic, right? So that's me. This is where I'm standing at. We have been going for 52 minutes and I've spoken a lot about it, guys, but you know what? You got to do it. So I'm going to, let me just double check the social media accounts. Yeah. Okay. So that is where I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm glad I made this top 66 because you know why? I'm glad I did that because now when people ask me what my favorite horror films are, you can go through this list and have a look, and I've explained why for all of them. I feel really annoyed that I didn't put number 23 there. So annoying, but yeah. You can go through it, guys, and check it out. But for now, I think that's about it. And just want to say thank you to everyone who's joined me on the stream. What am I going to do next? Well, might do some retro gaming one day soon. Probably review Halloween Kills, because a few people are asking for that. I'm looking forward to hitting the cinemas again to see Dune. Really hanging for that. Oh boy. Anyway, guys, it's been an iconic 3-part series for this top 66. If you've missed it, please go back and watch the old ones. Like, subscribe, etc., etc., blah, blah. Follow me on my social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, and even TikTok now. Dimitrios Galinikta to you too. I'll see you guys soon. Dasketas Gusses in 3, 2, 1, and happy Halloween, people. Trick or treat. Boom.